What does it mean? This lady's going to help us answer the question. Let's talk about it, y'all. Middle America. Yes, dear listener. Yes, dear listener. My name is Vincent, and this is Middle America, where we are not left wing, we are not right wing, we're just right. Okay, guys. This is going to be an interesting one. Somebody sent this to me a couple days ago, wanted me to kind of jump on it. I was late, so I was kind of late to the party, so I wasn't able to come through for y'all. But this time around, I guess I will. So it's better late than never. That's what the folks tell me. So here we go. This is going to be Anna Kasparian breaking down apparently a viral moment here relative to wokeness. Now, if you want to join the conversation, the process is very simple, dear listener. Facebook.com/America Middle. You will be sucked into the portal. I will warn you, it is a free speech environment. It is a free speech environment. So we let it fly over there in Middle America. It's funny because I just got done a conversation with a group of folks who, in my view, were a bit too sensitive relative to the concept of free speech, or didn't understand how the dynamics of free speech actually work. You see, dear listener, in a free speech environment, the things that you say about one group, another group can come back and say an equal and opposite thing about you. And in that way, free speech functions to keep us honest in that regard. Okay, now we are going to define, come hell or high water, what the term woke and wokeism means. Let's check it out. Here's Anna Kasparian. I know some of you guys are rolling your eyes already, but this is Anna Kasparian. Shout out to Danny Trujillo. This is Anna Kasparian breaking down a rather viral moment that happened, I think initially happened on Rising. All right, let's check it out.
Would you mind defining woke? Because it's come up a couple times, and I just want to make sure we're on the same page.
So there's Brianna. There's Brianna. I gotta tell you, Brianna has had. It's right. Your thing's right there. Brianna has had a couple moments on her show. Now I gotta tell you, there's one specific issue that whenever Brianna comments, she's like all the way crazy. But other than that particular one issue, Brianna is pretty badass. Vin, what do you think about Marianne Wilson? Hey, shout out to Raul. My thoughts on Marianne Wilson, and which we will talk about during the Ask Me Anything, is that anybody's got to be better than Biden or Trump, which are the only two options that we're going to receive. So if Marianne Williamson, I don't know if Williamson. If Marianne Williamson is anything relatively different than Biden or Trump, then I will give her a serious looking. I almost don't want to, promote her. She's crazy. She's a little bit woo-woo-y. But at this point, I don't think getting her would be a very bad eventuality. Okay. So here we go. This is Brianna Joy Gray asking, I was going to ask you actually about her war record or her peacenik record. It seems that older generation doesn't seem to have a problem with like escalating to a third world war. They seem pretty calm about it. You ever notice that? A lot of these old politicians don't seem very concerned about World War III. So yeah, I hear you. Okay, so let's try this again. Let's ask about what the term woke means. Let's try it out. 3 a.m. Let's do it.
Would you mind defining woke? Because it's come up a couple times, and I just want to make sure we're on the same page.
So, I mean, woke is sort of the idea that this is going to be one of those moments that goes viral.
moments that goes viral.
What did the apostles say? God bless you.
Yep.
God bless you. You get all these people. It's like this is what I tried to. This is what happened when I was asking my white friends, "What is CRT?" It's Marxism, Vin. It's like you get like a double. All right, let's try this again. This white lady's struggling. This lady's struggling. Hold on. The lady in the house.
Would you mind defining woke? Because it's come up a couple times, and I just want to make sure we're on the same page.
So, I mean, woke is sort of the idea that this is going to be one of those moments that goes viral.
You should see this Michael Cooper guy. He goes, "I feel enlightened," he says. I mean, look, if you haven't been on the internet to hear these people consistently whine about wokeism, I mean they've got phrases like go woke, go broke, get woke, go broke, all types of shit. Like these people have been complaining for millennia. For millennia about how horrible wokeism is and how dangerous wokeism is to our country. I like that username, leftovers. If that's like a left wing versus right wing thing, I think that's pretty intelligent that you're doing that. By the way, come and welcome. Okay, so she says this is one of those moments that are gonna go viral. So she knew the future. She was able to predict, accurately define for us what was going to occur in the future. But she couldn't tell us what woke meant. Okay, all right. Allahu Akbar. Let's continue, inshallah.
Yeah, it certainly was. Now, that was author Bethany Mandel, and
she's an author. I bet you anything she wrote a book about wokeness.
No.
How much you want to bet? Do you want to bet?
No. Oh my gosh. Okay, I really think that. Okay, I'll bet.
That she did?
No, she had to.
I'm saying she did.
I think she did.
How could you write a book about woke? Nah, I'm going back here.
No.
Because she seems pretty smart. Because she didn't write a book about. She probably wrote a book, but not about wokeness.
There was a chapter. There might have been a chapter.
You're probably right. I bet the book didn't have any pictures in it. All right, we continue.
Is an author of a book on wokeism titled Stolen Youth: How Radicals Are Erasing Innocence and Indoctrinating a Generation. Now, things didn't really get much better as
that doesn't mean the book is about wokeness, though. That doesn't mean the book is about wokeness.
What did she say? I thought
the name of the thing is Stolen Youth, something, 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 how the left destroyed innocence and indoctrinated kids or whatever. We continue.
Adele tried to answer a pretty simple question considering she wrote a book on this. Let's watch.
Woke is something that's very hard to define, and we've spent an entire chapter defining it. It is.
Oh my God, you were right. You should have bet that. That's like the over on the Chiefs game. Like you had that shit. You had it. You had it. Damn it. She had it. Yeah, see, leftovers she did. She had it. Shout out to leftover. Wow. So she's like, it's really hard to define, even though I wrote an entire chapter defining it. Allahu Akbar. What is going on, shorty? What happened? What happened? You didn't know they were going to ask you that question?
Simple question considering she wrote a book on this. Let's watch.
Woke is something that's very hard to define, and we've spent an entire chapter defining it. It is sort of the understanding that we need to totally reimagine and redo society in order to create hierarchies of oppression.
So wokeism is the idea that we need to completely reorient society to create new hierarchies of oppression. Did you catch that? This is her freestyling this answer because she has no idea what the hell she's talking about. So again, what she said is that wokeism is about completely reorienting society to create hierarchies of oppression.
Oh my gosh.
I'm pretty sure I'm pretty
editing
sure
so I missed that. It's like the
that
opposite.
nobody who would be referred to as woke, and none of the complaints from the Tucker Carlsons, etc. of the world are going to go along with that definition of wokeism. This woman completely has no idea. That's good. I can't wait to see that thumbnail. This woman has no idea what she's talking about. What in the world? Isn't wokeness staying informed about the ways most modern racism is low-key and silent? Well, look, I'll tell you guys this because I actually have some history with this terminology, actually. So back in the days, late 80s, early 90s, you had guys like Chuck D, et cetera, et cetera. Most in hip-hop, Common, even a guy like Rakim. I know a lot of you guys don't have no idea what I'm talking about. But long story short, these guys, we would call them conscious. They were part of the conscious community. If you Google conscious community, you Google Common, the Hoteps, all that jazz. So in the inner city, you had these group of black folks that had read Marcus Garvey, read Malcolm X, whatever. And their idea was all of us are sleeping, but because they've read these books, they're now conscious of what's really going on. They're conscious to systems of oppression. They're conscious to systems of self-hate. So for example, hair, for example. Black people have had a very interesting relationship with hair and European beauty standards, etc. So for example, you got guys that are like, I've got a family member very high in the government and certain whatever, and he got into a conflict because they wanted him to cut his dreads. And they were questioning his patriotism for cutting his dreads and all the rest of it. But my family member understood his cultural connection to that insignia and refused to do it and escalated all the way up to whatever and put himself in peril for selection, but he did it anyway. Okay, so that would be an example of normal people would say, just get a haircut. Like Michael Vick did this a couple of years ago. He's like, yeah, just cut your hair, just be presentable, right? And so a conscious guy would say, yeah, bro, but what does be presentable mean? What does that mean? And who determines what presentability is? And then, they'll talk to you and they'll break it down to you. And then what it comes down to is that European beauty standards and European norms and mores are being imposed on people who were not descended from Europeans, okay? So now that you understand that, everybody's just looking at like a regular haircut because they're asleep. They don't understand what's going on. But you are conscious, so you understand what's underneath these phrases like come to work respectable and all the rest of it, okay? That's just one example of what was going on. And so when they would rap, they would talk about that. And so there is a lot of, especially in the early 90s, you had kind of a spike in the Nation of Islam, Brother Minister, the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And guys, and this idea was like you were becoming more and more conscious about who you were as an African person prior to the transatlantic slave trade, understanding our heritage prior to slavery and all the rest of it. It's this idea, okay, now we're awake, we're seeing what's happening, and because it's inner city and it gets, Ibanicized, it became woke, okay? So that right there is where it came from. It came from the conscious community in the inner city, and it came from urban people and African descended people realizing who they were and trying to separate what it means to being an American, being African descended, and then the conflicts that both of those identities wage on a person. The idea that, hey, you're an American, I'm an American, we're all America, we don't see color, blah, blah, blah. The only people can say that are people in the majority. The only time I had a friend one time, and he's one of these I don't see color people. And I mean, he married a black woman. Okay, he's a white dude married a black woman. So don't hear me say every white person is in the KKK. But listen very closely. This dude married a black woman. His child is half black. And if you know anything about America, he's all black. But like he said that he went to a church. He went to a black church. Where the church is majority black and all the leadership are black. And he said, I immediately saw color. He said, I immediately understood that I was not like everybody else. Okay. So I understand and got a lot of my white friends don't understand. It's like, you're just an American. Yeah, whatever. It's like, yeah, you can say that when you're the majority, but when you're not the majority and none of the leadership looks like you and there's no representation of you, you absolutely know that you're not like everybody. And the people around you make it clear that you're not like them. Okay? Okay. So that's where woke came from initially. All right? Okay. So let's continue. Now, does this woman demonstrate any familiarity with this concept? Does she demonstrate any familiarity with what was going on in the urban and the black communities in the late 80s, early 90s relative to the crack epidemic, relative to our relationship with law enforcement, relative to our relationship with Mr. Reagan, Mr. Bush, Mr. Clinton, Mr. Biden? Does she understand? Does she demonstrate any familiarity with that? No. I will agree with this. Here's something Applejack says that I will confirm. I'm not going to front as a black man. When I lived in New York and in Chicago, blacks showed me more hate. White people in Ohio treated me like a human being. That is also true in many of our experiences. So then a conscious person would say, now, why is that, brother? Why is it that your own people want to murder you and these white people don't have a problem with you? And they'll say, brother Applejack, this wasn't always so. We didn't always hate each other. We didn't always kill each other. Especially after emancipation, we stuck together. You know, a couple years after emancipation, we had things like Black Wall Street and things of that nature. We were doing really, really good. When did this start happening where black people start killing each other at these crazy rates? And then what is the ideology that turned a group of people against each other to hate each other so much? So a conscious person would say, yeah, bro, that's your experience, but what's underneath that experience? See what I'm saying? So that's what woke means, okay? All right, now, let's see if this woman has any familiarity with the subject matter she's talking about. We continue.
Sorry, it's hard to explain in a 15-second soundbite. Sorry, it's hard to explain in a 15-second soundbite.
Yeah, look, your time.
Yeah, look at Brianna. Brianna's an astral cold killer. She just cut her throat. She said, I mean, you can take your time. Yep. You don't, 15 seconds, you know, to explain.
I mean, it's one of those things that, everybody is weighing against wokeness. We do some of it on this show as well. It's definitely something you know what it is when you see it, but...
you know what it is when you see it. That's what wokeness is. You just know what it is when you see it.
If you wanted to save her, why did he define it? Because he didn't know either?
Okay. Dear listener, she could not define what the term wokeness is because the way that these people use wokeness is really in the hands of the operator. Dear listener, I don't know if you remember this, about 5 years ago, if you had any concern about inequalities in our institutions, in our structures, you remember what they called you? They called you a social justice warrior. You remember that? Oh, you SJWs, And I used to say, that's a really weird term to mock somebody with. Like, what are you, an injustice warrior? How can you mock somebody for being a warrior for justice? Especially as a Christian, subhanAllah. I mean, that's one of Jesus's titles. I mean, I hate to tell you, but Jesus in Isaiah is a global justice warrior, not just a social justice warrior. But 5 years ago, that was the thing. Social justice warrior. If you ever said anything pro-LGBT, you're an SJW. If you ever pointed out that gay people and transgender people can be literally fired from their jobs, that they literally could be the best operator at their job and be fired simply due to the fact that they're LGBT, that they can lose their housing, like you could send those people out of their houses in the middle of the fucking winter due to the fact that they're gay or they're trans or they're transitioning or they're bi or whatever the fuck. So if you were to say, you know what, I don't think that that's right. And if there is a protest supporting those people, I'm going to show up. Oh, no, you're saying you're a social justice warrior. Oh, you some social justice warrior. I mean, yeah, I don't want my neighbors kicked out in the middle of fucking winter. Yeah, what do you mean? And then they killed the homie George Floyd. And you remember what they were saying during the George Floyd uprising? What did they tell you during the George Floyd? That's cultural Marxism. That was your boy, Jordan Peterson. Cultural Marxism, Vin. I can't tell you. Go to the comments section in 2020. And all my nice, well-meaning, that's cultural Marxism. So what the hell are you talking about? Have you read Marx? Well, no, I haven't read a stitch of Marx, but I know it's cultural Marxism. Well, where'd you get that from? Well, Jordan Peterson, didn't you see him on Tucker Carlson's show? It's all these terms they keep like morphing with the times. So 5 years ago, it was social justice warrior. George Floyd uprising. About 3 years ago, it was cultural Marxism. And then like next door neighboring to culture. So like cultural Marxism was like this secret sort of communist cabal of like hyper leftists, like Obama was in on it. And they were trying to bring Marxism to America. Of course, they didn't tell you that Marxism is an economic theory about workers owning the means of production, workers of the world unite. Has nothing to do with reorienting, has nothing to do with that. It's literally, it's like saying cultural capitalism. Like who's ever heard of this term, cultural capitalism? So they invented this term and then they poured all this, these negative ramifications into it. Don't you understand, dear listener, that the Federal Bureau of Investigation, also known as the FBI, had this program called COINTELPRO. And COINTELPRO was a counterintelligence program. That's what COINTEL means, okay? And this is open source now. And the main guys that were in the crosshairs of the COINTELPRO counterintelligence movement was a man by the name of, you might have known him, Martin Luther King Jr. Yeah, they targeted Dr. King. And one of the ways in which they targeted Dr. King, this is documented, was by calling him a Marxist and a communist. There were pictures and such of Martin Luther King styled up as a communist. They took a quote out of context where he said, I'm not a Marxist, but I have a lot of sympathy toward a lot of the things that he said about inequality and about how my Bible tells me the love of money is the root of all kinds of evil, as Dr. King would say. But they were publishing that Dr. King was a Marxist, that he was a communist, that yada, 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 yada. And yes, if you were one of those people that were using the term cultural Marxist to talk about the George Floyd uprising and why black people were angry in America, it was this idea, nothing is really happening to you guys. Nothing is happening with the police. What it is black people are so feeble-minded that you've all been brainwashed by these cultural Marxists. Nothing is really happening to you. That was the idea. That's what they said during 2020. It was cultural Marxism. It wasn't racism that was driving the anger and division. No, dear listener. It was not that. It wasn't Tamir Rice and Amadou Diallo. It wasn't growing up seeing guys like Rodney King and all. No. It was the cultural Marxists. You Negroes, you guys would be completely fine if it wasn't the Marxists coming in and shaking everything up. That was cultural Marxism. And then adjacent to cultural Marxism was CRT. You remember CRT? That's critical race theory, Vin. CRT says that white people are the worst people on the planet and that the black race is superior. I said, literally the first premise of CRT is that race doesn't actually exist, that it is a cultural shorthand code marker to define who gets privilege and who doesn't. That's like the central tenet of critical race theory, is that race is an actual artificial creation invented by oppressors to make sure that they can stay in one category and that the people that they deemed other races can stay in another category. That's why a guy like the dude that killed Trayvon Martin was able to kill Trayvon and then talk to the cops and leave that night on his own recognizance. So even though genetically he's Hispanic, when he's juxtaposed against a guy like Trayvon, societally speaking, he's coded as white. And so the justice system engages him differently than if the situation would be reversed. That would be an example of critical race theory. But did we get any conversations to that degree on Tucker Carlson? Were we given any of these very simple understandings of how these concepts work? I mean, wouldn't it have been helpful for Tucker and the rest of those people to say, you know what? These critical race theorists don't even believe that race exists. But what were you told about CRT when you watched Tucker Carlson, dear listener? You were told that CRT says that white people are the worst people in the world. We need to kill them, yada, yada, yada. Because they would take quotes like, we need to eliminate whiteness. And of course, if you understood what I just said 2 seconds ago, you would know immediately what they mean when they say we need to eliminate whiteness. Doesn't mean we need to eliminate white people. It means we need to eliminate the cultural code that puts somebody in a superior position via unearned advantages. That's what that means. But you were not explained that by Tucker Carlson. Tucker Carlson lied to you. He misquoted stuff, took shit out of context, and rightly assumed that a lot of us would not look for ourselves. And now, dear listener, we're not worried about CRT anymore. Now we're worried about woke. The reason that they can't define any of these terms, the reason that they invent these terms like cultural Marxism and all this, the reason they do that is because you don't want to come out and say, we are superior and we want to remain in a superior position. And these people are beneath us and we want to keep them there. You can't come out and say that in 2023. So what do? Every single time one of these marginalized groups sticks their head up, you just take a phrase and create a phrase to either mock them, belittle them, devalue the truth value of what they're saying, or turn your constituents into panicked little crazy people. I could not believe how terrified all these white parents. Oh my God, they're going to teach your kids CRT. And then everything became, even Jordan Peterson was like, I don't know what y'all talking about when you're talking about CRT. Because even if you talk about slavery, they'll say, oh, that's CRT. The white kid come home like, yo, is it true that we had all these billions of dollars on free labor, and then after that, when everybody got free and they started working, we took their tax dollars and redlined them and then gave all their tax money to white people so that they could start suburbs, and then left the black people with the scraps in the ghettos? Like, did we really do that? Well, you don't want your kid coming home and saying that, because then if your kid come home and say that, then this idea that all you have to do is pick yourself up by your bootstraps to be successful in America will now turn into a myth, and your impressionable young child might want to do something different about the culture when they get power. You don't want that to happen. So these terms all mean the same thing. Whether it's Martin being whether it's communism in the 60s and 70s, whether it's being a social justice warrior, which apparently is a bad thing, whether it's understanding critical race theory, and now it's woke. All of these are terms that people who want to maintain a certain hierarchical structure are going to throw around because they believe that their constituents are not going to actually look into these things and hold them accountable and operate with any sort of logic, because they both have a vested interest in not understanding this stuff. And they both have a vested interest. Tucker has interest, and people watching Tucker have a vested interest in constantly not understanding these terminologies. And that's why this woman, and that's why Robbie can't give you a definition for any of these terms. because the word is not meant to give us a specific definition. These words and phrases are meant as catch-alls to stymie any sort of movement of progress for marginalized people. So they're never going to be able to explain to you what these terms mean. Just like when you said, well, what is a social justice warrior and what's wrong with being a social justice warrior, they could never tell you. Because they cannot say, well, it's wrong to you're dumb for not wanting your gay neighbor to be thrown out in the middle of the winter. They can't come out and say that because they know how it makes them look. We continue.
Is it, Rob?
Yeah.
It is.
Will you define wokeness then?
I would say it's the tendency to punish people formally or often informally for expressing ideas using language specifically that is very new, that no one would have objected to like 5 seconds ago. So it's easier to come up with examples like, punishing people for using the wrong pronouns.
RM, I feel like part of the problem is woke has
Okay, so what he's talking about is the whole pronoun situation. And look, I've been very, very honest with my trans friends, whether they like it or not. If you're talking about attacking people, firing people, all the rest of it because they're trans, I'm going to fight you to my last breath. But do I believe that little Timmy should have been suspended from school because he misgendered Sarah? Because all he knew from his pack and play to kindergarten is that Sarah was Sarah, but now Sarah is Sean, and he's gonna get suspended from school. That shit actually happens. During the George Floyd uprisings, you had Italian Nancy Pelosi in a kente cloth, dashiki, and kneeling, talking about George Floyd. Like, what the hell? So you can't say that there isn't a social action group that just pushes all these concepts to absolute credulity. In much the same way, I am I'm a pro-life activist. I'm an abolitionist activist, whatever you want to call yourself. That's dangerous to say because there have been pro-life activists who have advocated for and carried out assassination operations on abortionists. Well, I am radically pro-life, and I don't believe there's any biblical or legal ground for doing such a thing. So imagine if Planned Parenthood, which they do, they try to take the most extreme fringe aspect of what we're trying to accomplish and then apply it retroactively to the entire group. Most trans people, I got a trans friend, and I've known they've been trans for, I don't know, a year and a half, 2 years. We had the pronoun conversation. It's a they type situation, but they are the only person that I know of that I speak of in the triplicate or in the plural. And I've known this individual as a he. When I see this person here and I remember, I do my best to do they, them, and not refer to them as he. But because that was how I was socialized when I met them, I screw up all the time. And they never go after me. They don't call me a transphobe. They don't say that you're not my friend anymore. They don't say you don't love me. They don't, like I see on Libs of TikTok, some teacher gets misgendered by a kindergartner. She's having a conniption fit in the car. Like, that's not what goes on with my friend. They're very understanding and all that. And always, oh, my bad, I'm sorry. And sometimes they're like, oh, I'm sorry, man. And they're fine. There's no freak out. There's no you don't love me. There's no you transphobe. There's no whatever. 9 trans people out of 10 are not going to freak out on you if they see you're putting even a modicum of effort. Even a modicum of effort. Because trans people are just happy enough to stick their head out of their door without getting their heads chopped off, much less all of them trying to force transgenderism down your throat. See, a lot of you guys, a lot of folks like misinterpret where I'm at on this whole discussion. There's a vast difference between saying we need to honor a person's personal convictions, choices, whatever, versus saying society is duty bound to do X, Y, and Z. My point is, yes, there are trans people who play the word police and all the rest of it and say you're crazy, you're horrible, and you're terrible, and will try to get you fired from your job, all types of shit. I know that. But those are the minority. Those are a very small, toxic minority of trans people. To color the term woke, to only apply to that, is completely disingenuous on Robbie's part. And Robbie is usually pretty deadpan honest. But the fact of the matter is he knows that that term is used, woke, as a catch-all to discourage anybody from participating in or speaking out for any marginalized community or against any action that detrimentally affects marginalized communities. He knows that that term gets marshaled literally every single time that you try to advocate for a group that is not represented by the power majority. That's what woke means. So, my view, yes, there are people that get absolutely ridiculous with it. There are black people who get ridiculous with this. There are LGBT people that get completely ridiculous with this. There are fat people that get ridiculous with this shit. And I'm saying fat because that's how they identify themselves. Dead fat, super fat, all that shit. Okay? Everybody's marginalized group has their crazies. Okay? So if you look at this whole fat acceptance thing, like, yo, I'm 700 pounds overweight and shit, but that's okay. Like, on the far, far end of the YouTube landscape, yeah, you're going to find people that say that. Okay? But that's not how woke is used, especially when people like this woman and Robbie use that term. And here's leftovers. I just don't agree with medically transitioning kids. Come on, they can't buy alcohol, vote, or drive. I agree. And there are some crazy trans people that will hear you say that and say, you're a transphobe. You hate people. You want trans people to die. You want trans genocide. So leftovers, you could be coming straight from the fucking protest with me and Sori, where you and I and Sori are fighting like mad to make sure that our trans friends don't get fired and don't get attacked on the street and don't get kicked out of the house. And then you can come home and then get labeled as a transphobe or whatever because you don't believe in medically and in some cases socially transitioning children. Like Britain's NHS did 6 months ago. They released something. They basically said, I don't think it's a good idea. We don't think it's a good idea to medically transition or even socially transition kids. And that's in Europe. But here's my point. My point is most trans people, even if they don't agree with you with the transitioning kids, they will not kill you if you try to make a 0.4% effort to understand them, respect them, see where they're coming from, whatever. Okay? And Robbie knows that myself, Sori, all these people would get called woke. Now, you talk to my trans friends, they would say Vin is probably too conservative for our taste. But if to all the Fox News watchers in Middle America, and we love you, I get messages all the time. Why are you woke? Why are you compromising when it comes to LGBT? Blah, 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 blah. And so, just as a side note, I love that because that means I'm exactly right. When both sides don't like you and both sides are upset with you, when both sides want to murder you, then I feel comfortable. I feel like I'm right because that's where Jesus was. Both sides wanted to murder him. And that makes me comfortable. To be honest with you, I get very uncomfortable if people on the right agree with me for 3 days in a row, and I get very uncomfortable when people on the left agree with me for 3 days in a row. I start looking around like, yo, what am I doing wrong? So if I'm not getting it from both sides, then I'm doing something wrong. Okay. So having said that, Robbie knows that the term woke is going to get pulled out anytime you do anything to advocate for trans people. It's not just medically transitioning kids or socially transitioning kids. Literally, anything you say to try to defend those people. You say, hey, they shouldn't be kicked out of their homes. Hey, if this person is the best operator, they should be worried about getting a bonus. They shouldn't be worried about being fired just because they're trans. You know, Robbie, and I know that if I were to say that, they're going to say, oh, you're woke. So stop trying to see, Robbie tried, he gave it the old college try. He tried to give like a very, very specific definition of the term. And he falls flat on his face because he knows that woke is much, much broader than that. We continue.
Just been a catch-all word for the right, meaning they use the word woke.
Wow, Vin, comparing yourself to Jesus? That's quite arrogant. No, I don't think it's arrogant. I think it's obedient, because Jesus told me to walk in the world like him. So when I get the kind of feedback that Jesus got, it gives me confidence that I'm doing that. Good call though. I'm absolutely a very, very arrogant person, but that's not an example of my arrogance. We continue.
And they apply it to anything they don't like. So
That's
it means
right.
different things to different people.
And that's right.
And when you're asked to define it, it's a little tricky when it's a catch-all phrase or a catch-all word for the right wing, you know?
Absolutely. That clip is maybe one of the only things that's ever made me want to go to law school, the way Brianna Joy Gray did that. That was definitely some lawyer stuff there, right?
I mean, you don't have to be very lawyery to catch these people. I was begging these people when they were whining about CRT. I said, all right, let's get on and have a debate about CRT. And they were like, well, will you debate this guy? I'm like, hell yeah, bring him on. Bring him on. He didn't. I'd look at Sori. They were busy. So I barely graduated high school. Barely. It took me 5 years. So you don't need to be a super lawyer to deconstruct this shit. It's just crazy. It's just dumb. I'm sorry. It's not crazy. It's actually pretty brilliant. But it's not hard to see through what they're doing. We continue.
Like, can you define that for me? No, we have all day. I mean,
you can take your time.
For you to, yeah, take your time. No, go ahead. Just kind of let her keep going. I mean, it's pretty good from Brianna.
Oh yeah, I completely disagree. I can't see an anti-woke or calling someone woke for standing up for minority groups' legitimate problems. Well, who determines what legitimate means? Like if I've got trans people telling me that they're consistently getting fired or harassed at work, who am I to say that that's not legitimate? Now I can investigate that claim, and then if I investigate the claim and there's no there, that's fine. But like for example, black people have been saying, hey, we're 4 times more likely to be killed by police. Tucker was saying that's not a legitimate problem. If you guys would just follow the law, they wouldn't be killing y'all, which is untrue. Because Tamir Rice didn't get an opportunity. They blasted him away in 1 second when he was standing in the park by himself. We've got cases of black dude in Walmart buying a BB gun. White lady freaks out, black dude with a gun. The cop shoots him in the back. Didn't even give him an opportunity to put his hands up. So when we would air out this grievance and say, hey, we got a real issue with the police here. We're not being treated right. We were told that hey, that's social justiceism, that's whatever, that's race baiting, that's division, yada, yada, yada. So, yeah, I disagree with you. I definitely think the anti-woke folks, anytime, any marginalized group, that's why I hung out on trans issues, because I'm black, like I already have a stake in the game, but I just picked trans people to say any group of people, when they get stood up for, that's what you get called. 5 years ago, you'd have got called a social justice warrior. 3 years ago, you'd have called a Marxist CRT. And now you're just being called woke because it's a catch-all for anybody who is fighting for any sort of equality for a marginalized group. We continue.
There, but yeah, you're right. The wokeness thing. It's not just because I've been watching videos about the banking meltdown, and that's due to wokeness. I don't know if you knew that, Anna. That's due to wokeness.
I have heard through the grapevine that you know, some people would.
Yeah, it's like the crazy people on the left, where like they blame everything on climate change. It's like dudes are shooting each other in Chicago because of climate change. That's what happens with these people. Anything that's wrong in the world, it's now wokeness' fault. We continue.
Like to deflect from deregulation and Federal Reserve policy and instead focus on wokeness, on the diversity within the banks, as opposed to the deregulations that allow the banks to take risks with depositor money and stuff like that, Yeah, it's amazing. It is amazing because I know I say this a lot, I repeat this a lot on the show, but I do it because
Kasparian is probably the least popular human being on Middle America. I'm gonna get another every single time I do anything relative to TYT. People are like, yo, why are you always doing that? You're losing credibility, blah blah blah. I don't care. I think TYT is still a legitimate news outlet. I think they're doing decent work, and I listen to them probably more than anybody I listen to because I disagree with them the most, and I believe that you should listen to people that you disagree with more than people that you agree with. So I hear you. There's a lot of people that have some issues relative to Miss Kasparian. I get it. But we continue.
Is Kristen Whitfield right? Joe Biden said help handle the hurricanes, we need to get vaccinated? Or is that
Yeah, he did. He did say that. He did say that about the hurricanes.
No.
That we had to get back. No, she's right. Who said that? Let me put that on the screen.
Kristen Whitfield. Oh my gosh.
Yeah. She's right. I mean, he did say that.
Oh my god.
He did say that. There's a lot of weird. There's a lot of weird shit. There's a lot of weird shit. But like, here's my thing about the wokeness things. Here's on that note what Christine was saying. You have to recognize that the people that the media props up, I'm specifically talking about MSNBC and CNN, have not done marginalized folks any favors because they always pick the craziest, most extreme version, and they always like find a way to go there when it's not necessary. And so, like, I understand if I'm on the right and I got a steady diet of Tucker Carlson who's telling me about all this stuff, and then I turn the channel and there's CNN and there's some, I don't know, 68-year-old black woman with, facial hair and fucking orange hair and all this types of shit, and they're talking about the intersectional ramifications of the colonial understanding of heteronormative cis Anglo-Saxon mores and how that affects the development of a 5-year-old prepubescent pre-trans individual. Okay? Now you turn on TV, okay, and you hear and see some shit like that. You can't relate to this woman. You don't know what the hell she's saying. And then there's Anderson Cooper looking all like profound and shit. Yeah, we know what you're saying. And the rest of us are like, what the fuck? We don't know what this woman is saying. And then the kid says, well, Dad, just shut up because anything you say, you'll be wrong. You'll be racist. You'll be transphobic. You'll be something. You'll be wrong. Okay? That shit, I'm sorry, but I understand. Because I don't believe that, I know a lot of you on the left believe this, but I don't believe that every right-winger who's against, wokeness or whatever is a horrible, terrible racist. Okay? I think the social engineers are, and they've admitted as such. Like, I forgot James Lindsay, he's like, we're doing a great job on this propaganda campaign against CRT. We've got everybody freaking out every time he literally said that on Twitter. Okay, so that guy, I mean, the guy's an atheist. He's an avowed atheist, and there were all these right-wing Christians promoting this dude. Marcus Pitt, all those bitch-ass people were promoting this dude on the church side. This guy's a complete I'm like, wow, Marcus, when did you start promoting atheists? This is strange. This is looking like me.
But let us listen to a black metal.
Yeah, let me listen to some black metal. It's the end of the world. We got James Lindsay literally come out and saying, I lied, and people bought it, and it's working. Like, okay, but I think there's a difference between, you have to make a dichotomy between James Lindsay, who purposely came out and did that in order to, and look, I get it, man. It's survival of the fittest, natural selection. He wants a white race to be paramount. I understand it. I mean, this world is all he has. I get it. I'm not mad at him. But you also can't be mad at the guy from, Butte, Montana, who turns on the TV and just heard that giant soliloquy about, cis heteronormative, blah, 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 blah. They don't even know what language you're speaking. So I do think that the left has to understand and recognize that. We have to recognize that and say, yeah, that's not a very productive way of speaking. That's the shit that you talked about in your ivory tower in academia, but you got to leave it there, bro. You got to come and translate this shit for people so that people have some sort of reference point to know what you're talking about. Okay, so I want to make a distinction between the James Lindsay types who know what's happening, know what they're doing, versus just regular people that are trying to understand this world that we're in now, because it's leaving them behind and they don't know what the hell is going on. And I understand why. The shit is just changing way too quickly because of the internet. This is not the normal passage of how cultures transform themselves, but that's a separate discussion. We continue. See how chippy this shit is? So frustrating.
I want people to, regardless of what your political identity is, to see.
I didn't say that James Lindsay was on the right. What I said was that Christian right-wingers conveniently overlooked his atheism to promote his anti-CRT agenda. That's what I said. We continue. Thank you for pointing that out, though. I hope I answered your question.
Why things play out the way they do, why politicians and members of the media lean into certain arguments. It's usually to distract you from what's really going on, right? So with the whole culture war stuff, especially the crying and whining about wokeness, when it comes from politicians, when it comes from people in power, it's typically to deflect. It's typically to provide cover for the fact that they're aiding and abetting corporations and robbing you. But with that said, I also want to just note, I do see some issues with how the culture war plays out, right? And
Yeah. I mean, I'm not completely convinced that these politicians are taking up the culture war issue because they don't want you to see that they're supporting all these corporations. I also don't believe that these people are as, like, for example, there was a big the Stop the Steal thing and all this nonsense, and it's come out that Fox News the entire time that they knew that that it was all a lie. Tucker Carlson hates Trump. He hates Trump supporters. He basically said they were morons and idiots, all types of shit. But they went along with it anyway. So I just think politicians are going to do and say whatever is going to keep them in power. I think politicians have had other ways of distracting the populace from the fact that they're supporting corporations. But I mean, Donald Trump made that a badge of honor for himself in the his message wasn't anti-corporate populism that got Donald Trump elected. The right-wingers elected Donald Trump not because of his anti-corporatism. He was against certain kinds of people. But he certainly wasn't an anti-corporatist. So I don't believe that a right-wing voting bloc needs a distraction from corporate buyouts. I don't think they need that because I don't think that that's what's important to them. We continue.
I'm specifically referring to, I think, what can be attributed to quote unquote woke policies or woke thinking. So I'll give you two examples. So for instance, this is a story that Cenk and I covered a few weeks ago because I thought it was such a dumb move by a high school in Culver City, California, which is in Los Angeles. To increase equity, this California high school is eliminating honors courses. So the story was about how they did an analysis and they noticed that there weren't enough Latino students enrolled in honors classes. So Culver City High just decided to scrap their honors program, meaning they did away with the opportunity for everyone. Instead of encouraging Latino students to enroll in the honors classes. Like, that makes no sense to me.
Well, I don't think you can just enroll in an honors class. Like, you have to make certain grades to get the honors class eligibility, you know. Yeah, I talked about this where I was on a Twitch stream one time with LGBT folks, and it was during the whole Leah Thomas debacle, and they were saying, you know what needs to happen? We just need to get rid of competitive sports, like wholesale.
That's so unbelievable. That's selfish.
So what I'm saying is that's just one example. This wasn't a trans thing. This was a Latino thing, the race thing. It's like, oh, we've got to have like this radical egalitarianism where, oh, there's not a lot of Latin people in the honors roll, so we just need to get rid of the honor roll. It's like, well, wait a second. What's the unique situation that's happening with these Latino kids? What's going on in the home life? Is it a language barrier issue? Like, there's a million. You could do a little Six Sigma analysis of that, and I'm sure you don't even have to go as deep as Six Sigma. You could just bring an education consultant in there and say, how come none of these Latin kids, we know they're smart as hell, how come it's not translating to their grades? And fix that problem. Instead of this ridiculous, okay, now nobody's going to have honors classes. Like, so all those parents who are driving with the fucking, my kid's an honor student that, you know, peel them off. And that engenders a kind of resentment, like, yo, we got to stop the whole thing because you Pedro has a problem. Well, we can help Pedro. Like, this is what I'm talking about. Like, you give, these people do not have, like, when they say woke, like I said, on the James Lindsay side, sure, it's disingenuous. We know what it is. It's hierarchical suppression. We get it. But you can't tell me that a mom who just got that phone call, and when they go to the PTA meeting, it's like, well, it's because there are not enough Latin kids represented in the. Obviously, they're gonna have a problem with that, and they should. That's a dumb solution. We continue.
Another example. I also think this is a dumb move. I'm a woman, and I disagree with this. So in Connecticut, they want to increase the number of female firefighters. So they proposed a bill that could alter female firefighter test, meaning lower the standards in order to increase the number of women who will.
Oh my God. Those standards are there for a reason. This is like they try to do this. They try to do this like around 2012 Ranger bat. They try to have or a Marine like as an officer training course or something like that. And they put like the top tier, like 2% of women in the military in the course, and they washed out by like phase 2. Come on, they didn't make it very long. Like, there's a difference between how men and women are constructed. I had one guy, I'm not going to mention who he is, but he was saying, well, why can't trans men go out for the NBA? I said, they can. They'll never make it. The cream of the crop in the WNBA couldn't run the court at a pickup game outside of where I live. That's a fact. It's a fact. They said it, not me. The girls said it. They said it. The women say it. Like, we could go to New York City and play in a pickup basketball game and win against those boys. So it's this ridiculous, like, we're gonna stretch credulity, we're gonna stretch common sense. I'm looking at a ridiculous conversation in the comment section right now. I'm not even gonna touch. It's this, we're gonna just stretch credulity to its absolute fucking limit. Do we want Latin kids to have opportunities in education? Yes. But when you stretch it to credulity, that's when it enters into, if somebody defines woke that way, I'm with it. And I'm against it. I would be with that definition and against its application. But you're going to find something very interesting. Mainstream Republicans are never going to define wokeness that way. Because did you hear what I just said? Yes, we want opportunities for Latino kids. And yes, we want more opportunities for women in variegated workplaces, but we're not going to stretch it to credulity. But in order to say they're stretching it to credulity, they'd have to say the first half, and they don't want to say the first half. See how that goes? We continue.
Qualify to be firefighters. The proposed legislation in Connecticut would lower the physical test requirements for women to become firefighters. Currently, all candidates, regardless of gender, are required to carry a 50-pound vest during the test. Because as a firefighter, you're carrying heavy equipment and you need to be able to do that in order to carry out the job.
And you carry people out. One of the things you have to call out for is the fireman carry. They literally call it the fireman carry. You know what that is? Is when you take your battle buddy and put him on your shoulder and you get out of Dodge. So the military, they call it the fireman carry. No, Anna, they're not just holding a 50-pound vest because of their gear. You have to wear that. You got your gear and you're trying to carry people out because of smoke inhalation, all the rest of it. And then you got to make sure that you don't aspirate your lungs and your ability to expand and contract, all the rest of it. These are all like physiological things. This is not something where we get to like, idealize the way that God created us out of fucking creation. I'm sorry. Men and women are different. No, your average woman, hell no, she doesn't have the capacity to run into a fucking burning building and fucking scoop somebody up after they've got like 60 pounds of gear on them and then take another 150 pounds down the steps and all that shit. No, your average woman cannot do that.
So it's supposed to mirror the experience of wearing heavy gear and an air tank while performing firefighter duties. According to the language of the proposal, the purpose is to allow for a more diverse class of candidates. No, but I'm just gonna be honest with you guys. When it comes to essential jobs like firefighting, I don't care about like, oh, we need to have an equal number of women. No, I just want qualified people to do the job. That's it. So like everyone should take the test and people who don't pass the test can't be firefighters. It's not that difficult. This is a physical job.
Agree. But you go to that comment section. You go to that comment section, dear listener, and see how they treat Miss Kasparian for saying what she just said.
Okay, being able to do the job is more important than increasing the number of female firefighters, in my opinion. I don't know. What do you think, RM?
Yeah, I get what you're saying. I mean, I think a lot of this stuff, it's just, by the way, an Anna Kasparian as a firefighter would be interesting. You know, you're kind of like doing sort of a Batman thing where by night you're saving people from.
Anna has been known to pull that Me Too trigger. Feel how you want to feel about it. Just be careful, bruh. That's all I'm saying.
Fires, that'd be cool. But yeah, it just feels like, look, we have examples of countries that kind of have a fairer, they have a fairer system and they have, like things like a welfare state. You guys always talk about the kind of, the Bernard Sanders countries and all that, the Nordic countries. Like we kind of know how to have a kind of fairer, people more empowered society,
This whole like love affair with the Nordic countries. Go over there then. All these Nordic countries are so much fairer and superior to America. All right, go over there then. Ridiculous. How many billions and millions a year all these countries in NATO and shit. All these countries are in NATO. Why are we spending 140 billion? See, I'm angry now. It's 3:00 in the morning. We continue.
But it feels like instead we get these kind of little touches around the edges to make it look like we're kind of doing something. I don't know. Do you get that feeling?
Absolutely, 100%. I'm trying to think of specific examples, but I definitely do see that happening, right? And so I want everyone to be able to make good money. To me, that's power, right? I'm not into this whole notion of like, let's lower standards so everyone qualifies for things. The standards are there for specific reasons, right? There are differences between men and women, and that is like physical differences. And it's okay. It's okay to admit that. It doesn't mean that women are weaker or that men are better or vice versa.
Yes, it does. It does. Yeah. It does mean that. Women are weaker. Yes, they are. That's what it means. That's literally what it means. They're weaker than us. I said that this person, he said, why can't trans women apply to go to the NBA? I said, apply? Well, first of all, apply? Like, you don't apply? What the fuck? Apply? The Lakers have a job application? Like, you can go out to the front and fucking... We are an equal opportunity employer. Ridiculous! Anna! We are stronger than you. Anna Kasparian, you can go to the gym for fucking 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. You run into an average dude, he will put you on the ground. Yeah, we're stronger. That's why there are different societal mores. That's why when you walk down the street, if you see a woman saying, fuck you, and slaps a dude in the face, most people are going to be like, oh, he must have done something wrong. Ha 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 ha. But if it's reversed and a dude slaps a woman in public, people are rightly going to get at him. At minimum, call the police. If you're too much of a coward to defend that woman, you'll call the police. There's a difference. We're not the same. We're not the same. Now, Anna, this very practical perspective that you're taking relative to the fire department and relative to those standards and how that works, maybe if you could extrapolate that same common sense ideology onto certain other issues, maybe we can come to some agreements. What do you think? I'll let you figure that out for yourself, dear listener. We continue.
Just means that we have different strengths, different weaknesses, and that's totally fine. Okay, so.
Yeah, but again, I will say that my friend who's talking about biological women applying for the NBA, that again is an example of what I would define as wokeness in the negative connotation. Just stretching, here's a concept: women are equal to men in value in society. Absolutely. So then we extrapolate that beautiful truth into ridiculousness when we say women can apply to be in the NBA. Well, you can apply. God almighty.
But I do feel like in lieu of a system that allows people to thrive regardless of what their background is, regardless of what their identity is. And when I say thrive, I mean financial stability, right? The idea of the American dream. If we had a system in place that ensured that people had those opportunities, I don't think we'd have these weird symptoms of let's do these little what they think are fixes around the edges, you know?
Yeah, no, I think this is Anna not holding the left responsible for allowing the Rachel Maddowification of their movement or the CNNization of their movement. No, this happened because CNN and MSNBC, especially during the Trump administration, was allowed to go roughshod into absolute credulity and ridiculous stupidity. And here's my major problem with the left, bro. The left does not do internal critique well. The left does not do internal critique well. So when you do that dumbness, when the right comes and critiques you, it's an emperor with no clothes situation. See what I'm saying? You got this lady on and she's talking about the transcendental meditational ramifications of cis heteronormative blah 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 blah. And instead of Anderson Cooper saying, "Lady, what the fuck are you talking about? Nobody knows what you mean." Instead of him saying that, he's sitting there nodding profoundly, staring motherfuckerly. It's not gonna work. Everybody else is like, what the fuck is going on? So then what happened? The gut-filled guy from Fox is like, hey, that shit is weird. And all the folks were like, okay, I felt like that bitch was weird, man. She had fucking orange hair. She's fucking 85 years old. What's this black lady with fucking orange and pink hair doing on this fucking television set? I don't know what's going on. I mean, they use terms like television set. You can't come to them and talk about heteronormative blah, blah, blah. That's your fault. You did that in the left. I'm sorry. I love y'all, but good night. Shit is ridiculous. It's intolerable. You should see this fucking conversation that's happening right now in this chat. Ridiculous stuff. It's the left, man. What can you do?
And I don't know, it leads to more frustration. I do think there's some truth to the language policing that rubs people the wrong way. I think there's a problem with white liberals telling Latinos that they need to change their entire language so it's
That's right, the Latinx thing, that's right. Latinx. So what happened is, Spanish is an extremely gendered language.
Yes.
Right? So
Yes,
so
it
so
is.
in English, it's like, oh, you're Latin. That's a neutral term. You can be a Latin man, a Latin woman. But when I'm in the Bronx, it's Latino, soy Latino, or if you're a woman, Latina. It's extremely gendered. Well, we don't. There's implications to that.
What are they gonna do?
So what they did was they dropped the vowel and they put a -X. So now it's Latin X.
No.
Yeah. And there's literally no Latino or Latina on the fucking planet that is cool with that shit.
Yeah, I bet.
Now, we know a person that's a Latina.
Yeah.
They will cut your throat on that shit in the Bronx. You know, go to Pelham Parkway and talk about some Latinx.
And they're very, you know, and they'd be very, you know, like on the side of the trans person. You know what I'm saying? But they still wouldn't be good with that.
Oh yeah. But this is.
So wait, they would want them to change their entire, because isn't it's more words are gendered in their language too. They want them to change all of that.
Yeah, because they're trying to reorient society to move past gender for obvious reasons. They have an agenda, right? So again, this is stretching this shit to credulity, and this again speaks to the privilege and the fucking narcissism that certain communities have. Look, I love y'all to death, but some of these communities are some of the most narcissistic, fucking self-centered people I've ever seen in my life. Holy shit. You're going to go and impose fucking Latinx onto another group of people. It's insane. So again, you're taking a principle and then stretching it to credulity, and then you're forcing everybody in society to go, yeah, that's not fucking weird, when it's weird as fuck. And then you persecute people for not going along with your craziness. If people are saying that is what woke is, then everybody agrees.
Gender neutral. They don't want it. They didn't ask for it. And you can't force it on them. So those things I think are legitimate. Like those critiques are legitimate. But at the same time, let's not get it twisted. The whole woke argument, especially by people in positions of power, is used to deflect from the fact that they're screwing you, that they're helping corporate America.
I think it's very, very complicated, and I really respect the way that Anna's handling this. I think it's one part, we're screwing you, corporate America. It's another part, this is just a continuation. To me, this is the majority of it. This is the continuation of the social justice warrior smear, the cultural Marxist smear, the CRT smear. This is just another iteration of that. And in 6 months to a year, the technology that gets used so that you can automatically shut down the minds of half the country because you've got this code word that means don't listen to them. Whatever they say is not valid. I think that's a vast majority of what's going on here. I also think it's also some parts crazy ivory tower leftists who are incurably narcissistic and are now imposing their incurable narcissism onto the rest of the country. You got to have a hell of a lot of cojones to be fucking 1 to 3% of a society and demand everybody reorient the entire structure of the fucking world, language itself, to you. That is fucking. I just wonder if narcissism is not a comorbidity to certain political movements, like on a clinical level. That's what I think's going on. We continue.
Exploit you, exploit migrant workers, exploit child labor, exploit all sorts of vulnerable people to make a buck. That is what the focus should be. But let's just keep it real. The focus is usually on all the like cultural stuff on the edges because it's a nice distraction.
No, I disagree. It is wokeness. All our problems is because, actually, not to.
I mean, no disrespect. TYT has these comedians and shit on, and they're not really very funny. I don't know who this guy is. This is this random guy. I don't understand why he's qualified to comment on this situation. I don't know who is this brother. I don't know who he is. I mean, no disrespect to him, but like, who are you?
I know he's been on the show and you guys have had good debate. Try to sort of make it sound that part of the problem, part of why the bank meltdown happened was because of one of these companies had like a Pride Month celebration.
Oh my God.
And I don't know if that.
Yeah. That's what I said. Like the right wing architects, they use that the way that left wingers use climate change. Like dudes are blowing each other away over there in Chi-Town because of climate change. Yeah, I agree with that.
I don't know if that was it. I'm going to just say, I'm not an economics expert or banking expert, but I'm going to say I don't think that's it.
I mean, they must have used up all of their liquidity on that Pride Month. All of that liquidity.
They had to. You should have seen these decorations. Oh my God, they were amazing. So I think that might have been it.
Guys, it's a distraction. They just don't want to regulate the banks when we need to regulate the banks. Let's call it for what it is.
Thanks for watching The Young Turks. We really appreciate it.
I mean, Anna, neither does Joe Biden. To frame this, I think that's another major mistake that people on the left have, is that the extremists on the left, they truly think that anybody who disagrees with them is on the right. That all the people that disagree with them are on the right. That's not true. There's a lot of people that disagree with y'all on the left. They're just not crazy like you. I think Christine's breakdown of Anna Kasparian is exactly where I'm at. I think Annabelle's reasonable I think Anna is reasonable when I heard her talk with Ben Shapiro. But when she gets back to Cenk, it's like common sense goes out the window. But that's just my opinion. Nope, that's not your opinion. That is absolute and 100% fact. I put that statement a little bit below the Bible. That's how factual what you just said was. Anna, she's not going to like this, but she essentially takes on the dominant male characteristic of wherever she is. That's just a fact. When she's around Cenk, she's yelling, screaming, coming unhinged, all types of crazy shit, losing her mind. Her vocabulary goes down to Cenk's level. When she was talking to Ben, she was completely dignified, sat like a lady. I just want to fuck with people. It's 4 a.m. Completely dignified, sat like a lady, spoke reasonably, used big words, very eloquent, very respectful. So Anna takes on the dominant male energy of wherever she is. That's just a fact. Nobody's going to want to hear it, but it's a fact. I'm sorry, ladies. Don't be angry at me. I'm telling you the truth. You know I'm right. You know I'm right. Now, it was St. Patrick's Day today, and holidays are hard for everybody. If you've lost somebody, this is a day that is hard for everyone. So, you know who you are. You lost somebody today. We'll pray for you, and God will make it easy for you, inshallah. Yeah, poor Ian. Poor Ian's trying to reason with Ben. Why not just say Latin period? I'm against that. I think that those people should have self-determination. And for millennia, these people have been referring to themselves as Latina and Latino. Latina y Latino, or Latino y Latina. Everything in that language is gendered. That's their language, that's their culture. And you've got to be a really narcissistic son of a bitch or daughter of a bitch to fucking do that shit. Fucking tell people, fucking millions of people on the planet. We're going to completely change. So what is wokeness? If I say wokeness in the negative sense, I say wokeness is socialized narcissism. That's what it's applied socialized narcissism. It's the smallest populations in the country imposing their fucking batshit crazy mentality, language policing, and fucking reality bending, twisting, denying fucking worldview onto everybody else. That's wokeness in its negative form. In its positive form, I think it can be very, very helpful because it encourages folks to look a little bit deeper beneath the surface to test some of these norms and mores to see if they're rooted in something like collective understandings of identity. Like, that's the thing that a lot of these people don't understand, especially with Hispanic people. They've got a really solid self-identification like you would not believe. When I was in New York, holy shit, the Puerto Ricans, they tell you that everything was from the best. I'm like, what are you talking about, Puerto Rico? You guys are you're a second world country. What are you talking about? You guys are, whatever. And so they're like, well, what do you think Jamaica is? Jamaica ain't no first world country. So we were just going back and forth. They got a real strong sense. And then my buddy was like, nobody with the racism. Nobody with the racism. She's like, how are we racist? Your man just said, Vinny just said that Jamaica's better than everybody. What's the... but them people, they got a real strong self-identification. You can't go in there and tell them people how to talk. Good night. Latinx sounds like a laxative. I'm not gonna lie to you, bro. I'm not gonna lie to you. This shit is real. After Anna tried Me Tooing Jimmy Dore because she was losing an argument, I stopped giving her the benefit of the doubt. She's a horrible person.
Well, what can you say?
All I can say to that is that I blame Jenk for that. I feel like Jenk is behind all that shit. That's what I believe that.
She's innocent.
No, I don't.
Here is the driven snow. It's all Jank's fault that she did that.
I think a lot of
he forced her.
I think a lot of it is Jenk's fault. I do. I believe a lot of it is Jenk's fault.
Wow, that's so insulting. She is a grown ass woman, and you're saying that he's responsible for her actions. What are you saying?
I didn't say that he was responsible for her actions, but when you look at their body of work,
she's a grown woman.
Like when you look at Brianna Joy Gray when she had that interview with Jenk is the one that's obsessed with Jimmy. Anna is not obsessed with Jimmy. Anna doesn't mention Jimmy every 2 seconds. So me personally, my breakdown of that situation is she's responsible. She shouldn't have done it. And I'm the one that said that I'm the one that brought up the Me Too stuff with Anna on this call. But what I'm saying is, who do I hold ultimately responsible? I hold Cenk Uygur responsible for that.
Okay.
I hold Cenk responsible for that.
Okay.
Yeah, here's everybody agreeing with you like fucking normal. Get him, Sori. Here we go. See, look. Here's Tasco. Anna's a grown-ass woman. She has agency. You say the same shit about AOC and Bernie. But I'm right in both occasions. I'm right in both counts. And here's the thing. Everybody knows I'm right. You know that if Bernie would have stood up and manned up and fucking nutted up and sacked up like a man, AOC would have went there and did jihad. You know that. You know I'm right about that, Tasco. Yes or no? Is Anna the only one who made Me Too claims against Jimmy Dore? Yeah, that I know of. Sims, I don't know anybody else that's made Me Too claims against Jimmy Dore. And we exposed on the show that they lied about that entire incident. They said they didn't know, and then later on they shot a show in which they said they did know. And we literally caught them in a contradiction and a lie. We caught them on the show. That's when Jimmy picked it up, retweeted it, all types of shit. So I don't know about any claims against Jimmy outside of the Anna situation, but I do know they lied. That's a fact. And and Anna was the one in the position of power in that situation, not Jimmy. Anna's like the executive producer of that environment, whatever. So miss me with that. I completely, I don't believe it. I don't think there's any credibility to it. Once I see that you lie, it's over with. And I take workplace Me Too claims extremely seriously because everybody knows why. I lost 2 of my employees they lost their life. Actually, 2 of my employees and 1 of their kids. Like, that's 3 deaths. I always say there's 2, but there was 3. I take that shit very, very seriously, probably more than any of you will. Not because I'm a good person, but because I was literally face to face and lost people that I worked with because people didn't take that shit serious enough. So I take that shit very serious. But at the same time, Sims, I'm a black man in America. And a lot of black men met their death on a false accusation of a woman against them. So I live in both worlds, bro. I'm not with this whole, we're just going to indiscriminately believe women and we're not going to, pay close attention to it. My thing is, you need to investigate the hell out of those claims. And if there's a real claim and it sticks, you need to fucking bring hell down on that motherfucker's head. That's my perspective on it. But right now we're in this crazy situation where it's like, believe everything women say, except if it's Tara Reid, because if we believe what Tara Reid said, and it looked very, very credible, if we believe what she said, then Joe Biden wouldn't be president, and we know we want power. So we're not going to believe women after that. Miss me with that shit. Miss me with that shit. And it held on to that BS stories for a year before springing on Jimmy. Yes, I agree. That was a complete bullshit story. When Cenk announced that Jimmy was leaving, he cried. It was very emotional. He gave him a tribute, all that shit. But you told us, Cenk, that you heard about the situation and all the rest of it. You're going to write up Jimmy and you're going to fire him before he quit. Which is it? God almighty. All right. AOC, unfortunately, in my opinion, AOC is simply the new Nancy Pelosi. She's going to be a establishment figure, and there are some people who are in the establishment, and there are other people who are the establishment. There's a difference between being in the establishment and being the establishment yourself. And unfortunately, it looks to me like AOC is next in line to take that crown from Nancy Pelosi. Nancy Pelosi was the establishment. It was her show and you were playing her game. And that's who AOC is going to be, in my view, unfortunately. In 10 years, AOC is going to be incredibly rich, incredibly corrupt, incredibly disingenuous, but she's going to be the top fundraiser for the DNC, just like Nancy Pelosi was the top fundraiser for the DNC. And that's how she accumulated all that power. And I believe that, unfortunately, AOC is in that category now. Didn't Emmett Till's accuser admit on her deathbed that she lied? Yes. Not her deathbed, because she's still alive. And people were saying, well, let's prosecute her. And they said, no, the statute of limitations are too high. I like Jackson Hinkle. I'm not even going to mention the name of the other guy. Once you start the stuff with kids, once you start the whole speculating about kids and age of consent and all that shit, I don't play with that shit. So fuck that guy. That's another one of those people that it's one of those people I don't want to see in the real world, man. People playing around with shit that you shouldn't play around with. Fuck that guy. AOC lost me a long time ago when she made that video not knowing what a dishwasher was. Yeah. There was that. There was a couple issues. God, I'm not gonna lie about AOC. That AOC Applejack is my dog, bro. You see what he said? Hey, she's like, I still believe in AOC. Applejack said, you must like to be let down. He doesn't give a fuck. He doesn't care how much he loves you. If you support TYT, you support Anna, he's gonna give it to you. He doesn't care. That's what I love about it, because he's always he's gonna shoot straight. He's like, Vin, you an idiot. Liking that AOC girl. What's wrong with you? She probably entered DC with good intentions, but sooner or later, Washington mugs you of your integrity. Nah, bro. Nah, Washington can't mug you of your integrity. Integrity is not something anybody can take from you. Integrity is something that you give up, bro.
Oh, so they're responsible.
Did I ever say she wasn't responsible for her own personal integrity? No, but biblically where Jesus says that the one who causes the person to sin is guilty of a greater sin. Don't sit here and talk to these pagans like you don't know what the fuck the deal is. You know what the deal is.
Yeah, but it's fun to watch you
deceiving these poor. Vin, the biggest factor of life expectancy is wealth. Therefore, being against wealth distribution is the same as advocating for the death of people based on class. Agree or disagree? I'll have to see where I'll have to see that documentation, and then I'll have to see why. Is it because wealthy people have a more adapted lifestyle? Is it because wealthy people have more access to healthcare, which is obviously true, but like extra things like right now we're on this program called I'm not going to tell the name of the program because I'm not trying to promote this program, but I'm a big believer in gut health, and focusing on gut health is the key to everything, including certain coughs and things of that nature. Gut health. I'm a believer in the program, but it's pretty expensive considering what's going on. But it absolutely gives myself, my wife, my kids, it definitely gives us an advantage over people who cannot afford that. So I'm not sure. That's a good argument. And I'm not even certain that all right-wingers are against wealth redistribution if you phrase it the right way. Like during Obamacare. You remember this whole thing during Obamacare where people were like, I'm against Obamacare, but I do like I forgot what it was. Unbelievable. They call it the American. What was the official version of Obamacare? It was, I forgot what it was, something Act or something like that. And they were like, they were against Obamacare, but they did like the official term for Obamacare. You know what I'm saying? So I just think it depends on how you phrase stuff. I do think that there are ways you can talk about wealth redistribution that will not set off the Marxist alarm system for a lot of people. Yeah, the Affordable Care Act. Right. So we're watching this video where it's like they were against Obamacare, but they were for the Affordable Care Act. They were against Obamacare because that's socialism. But the Affordable Care Act, they were saying, well, that's helping out Americans and all the rest of it. So, that demonstrates to me that you can get the right to support wealth redistribution. You just have to package it in such a way as to make it acceptable to them, because they're worried about the socialist boogeyman. Let me see that. So that's what it looks like to me. All right. AJ, you haven't made a bad argument as far as lowers in the age of consent. I don't remember ever seeing these clips. Man's got stuff you can crit him on, but character assassinations. Are you talking about Vosh? Man, fuck that guy. Care about him? Anytime you start talking about kids, man, it's over with. It's over with. People, man, you shouldn't play around with kids, man. Like, man, you start bringing them into it, man, it's over with. Like, there's got to be lines, man. There's people got to have lines. You can't just say, "Oh, everybody makes mistakes." There are some mistakes that are irreconcilable, and there's some mistakes. There's some decisions that are final. And people love the clicks and they love being controversial, so they love saying a bunch of crazy shit. But I live in the child molesting capital of the world. And those motherfuckers don't need any encouragement that their inclinations and anything relative to their fucked up subculture is somehow acceptable, and that society needs to fucking catch up with that shit. But you know what? This is what happens when you have a steady diet of Kinsey and Foucault. Because the more and more I see all this kid shit, the more I'm like, yo, what the fuck is going on? And I gotta tell you, This Foucault shit, this you got some leaders of certain movements that are really sick, fucked up people, man. And these movements will not repudiate these people. And then on top of that, I'm seeing all this shit with kids and people throwing up all these ideas about kids into the ether. It's not looking good. This Kinsey Foucault shit is not looking good. Yep. Leave kids alone. I consider myself conservative, and yet I believe UBI is inevitable. Yeah, I mean, I think Alaska is doing UBI still. I think UBI is a great idea. I think when you looked at the stimulus thing, that was hugely popular with everybody. The stimulus checks were, and you know, it'd have been great if we could have got another round of those stimulus checks. But $140 billion of our money went to fucking Ukraine, so you know how that shit goes. But I agree with you. Vosh, like most political YouTubers, are chasing clicks and dollars. I mean, here's my thing, man. I don't know if it would almost be better if they were just saying that to chase clicks and dollars, but I'm not sure that he's doing that for that reason. I think there are elements in this country and in the Western world that are actively and self-consciously trying to reorient society at the fundamental level. That's what I think is happening. So I think it's deeper than just, people are trying to get clicks or whatnot. Yeah, you got to draw a line after that. You got to draw a line after that because, you start messing with people's kids, people are going to start drawing lines around your body, bro. Like, this is what I'm saying. Like, a lot of people in the community don't have children. So they don't understand how people are with their kids. They don't get it. They don't understand how maniacal you get when your kid's in danger. And when other people's kids are in danger. It completely changes you as a person. It completely changes you. And especially if anything's ever happened to you as a kid, I'm telling you, it's going to get really, 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 really bad for some folks. Messing with parents' kids is largely why Youngkin won Virginia. Yeah. There's some things where the left is like determined to shoot itself in the face, man. And this is one of them. So, I don't know, man. Will you and Sori support my Twitter rant against Dylan Mulvaney tomorrow night? Well, I will watch it. I am very, very interested in what you have to say. I've seen a lot of women that are really offended at this Dylan Mulvaney individual. And so I want to hear what you have to say because this is the only cultural moment where the left is telling women to shut the fuck up.
Yeah.
Women can talk about anything. Women can talk about shouting your abortion. You can literally walk down the street fucking buck-ass naked wearing a pussy hat, shouting your abortion, and the left will be like, yeah! But the minute these girls start talking about Dylan Mulvaney or how they feel about bathroom shit, the left tells them, shut your fucking mouth. It's fascinating. So I want to hear what you have to say about Mulvaney. I don't have any interest in beating down marginalized groups, but I also have no interest in telling women who've been through hell in this country, I'm talking about from the inception, telling those people to be quiet and not speak their truth. I'm not down with that shit, man. I am not. I am sorry. I am sorry. So yeah, put that post. I mean, I want to see what you're gonna say, right? Like if you go crazy and say we need to kill these people, blah blah blah. Obviously, I'm not gonna support it. You know what I'm saying? So I can't tell you now I'm gonna support it. I gotta watch what you're saying, and then I'll take it from there. But I am as your big brother, like obviously, like I want you to say what you have to say. I want you to speak your truth. I just want you to remember to be gracious and loving. The law came through Moses. Grace and truth came through Jesus Christ. So be like Jesus and tell the truth gracefully, but speak your truth and speak it forcefully, but remember to speak gracefully. And, I'm sure you're not going to let me down. So tag me in the tweet so I can see what you have to say for sure. Also, Shell, drop your Twitter handle and I'll put it on the page so everybody can follow you. What left is he talking about? What do you mean, what left am I talking about? I'm talking about the version of the left that tells women that they can't speak if they're uncomfortable about a bathroom situation or if they're uncomfortable about a sports situation or whatever. That kind of left. Or I know a lot of cis women who are really fucking angry at this Dylan Mulvaney individual. Like, I know cis women who love trans people, cry for trans people, love them, all types of shit, support them, disagreed with hardcore conservative parents over to support them, who took one look at Dylan Mulvaney and were really fucking angry. So something else is going on with the Dylan Mulvaney phenomena that's different from the trans phenomena. Like, those are not the same. They're parallel and they're overlapping, but they're not the same. Something else is going on with that individual. So, there you go. All right. I love you guys. I'm out of here. Shout out to Anna Kasparian. Anna Kasparian without Cenk Uygur is pretty good. I'm not gonna say she's good. I'm gonna say she's tolerable because my wife is sitting right here. So you know how that should go. So Anna Kasparian is tolerable when she's away from Cenk's sphere of influence. All right. So there you go. Isn't that what they used to say? We need to get Sori away from Vin. What they call me? What the guy called me? It was like some like Italian name. Like he's a.
Oh yeah.
I forgot. It wasn't Don Juan. It was someone. It's something else. Good night, everybody. Good night. Rico Suave. No, it was some. I forgot the name. It was some Italian term, but it was like Svelte or something like that. I forgot. But it was something. Good stream. The chat was great. Stop dunking on us. Oh, I wasn't dunking on you, Ian. I wasn't dunking on you. But some of the statements in chat were dumb as hell. And you know what I'm talking about, Ian. Text me later. All right. I love you guys. I'm out of here. Love your neighbor. Take care of each other.